Why are we here again? Why have we got yet another Formula 2 champion that's been left in limbo, not with a confirmed seat on the Formula 1 grid? I mean, sure, he's got that development gig, but it's not exactly a proper seat now, is it? Surely an F2 championship should act as a golden ticket into the big time. Are we so vain? But like, why is it that nobody in the F1 paddock is talking about Felipe Drugovich right now? These are all questions I'm hearing at the moment. But I'm not convinced. I mean, his talent is undeniable, let's get that out of the way, but so much so that he irrefutably deserves a shot at Formula 1? I don't know, I don't feel he's that guy. Why don't I feel as though he's quite that guy for a berth on the Formula 1 grid? At least compared to some others? Maybe I am being an arrogant gatekeeping bitch here or something, but to really delve into why, or perhaps for a bit of self-reflection at least, I've got to walk y'all through his career thus far. Yeah, it's gonna be another one of those videos. Hopefully by the time this video is released, Felipe hasn't done anything stupid or gotten himself into a freaking scandal or something. I've got a knack for cursing drivers like that. Anyways, Drugovich's journey started off in his native Brazil, where he had a successful karting career before moving over to Europe, where it was not that brilliant, but you know, all a viable learning experience. After which time, his car racing career kicked off in the German Formula 4 Championship, driving with Neuhauer Racing. His teammate that year was Nicholas Nielsen, and he was a rookie too, so to beat him in the standings would have been almost a requirement in a way. And he did. And a little disappointing, but I guess you could chalk it up to, lack of experience. At least that's what it says here in the excuse book. His first race win came in the winter break whilst over in the MRF Challenge Series in India. Although Manshead did finish a long way behind the likes of Harrison Newey and Joey Mawson, a dude who beat Mick Schumacher twice, and yet one made it to Formula 1 and the other one didn't. Go figure the math on that one. For the 2017 racing season, he would take a second stab at the German Formula 4 Championship, as well as having a partial campaign in the Italian Formula 4 Championship, and the European Formula 3 Championship, and the Euro Formula Open Championship. All bar the Euro Formula 1 would be run with Van Amersfoort, and even at Euro Formula 1, he was running with arguably the best team anyway. Why is this important, and why so many championships? It's important because even in Junior Spec Series, that ain't equal. You are enticed to get into the best team possible, even if you are the best driver in the world. And he did. As for why so many championships, well, despite what we would hear later, that is sponsorship money at play there. Sponsors are going to play a big role in this dude's career, so forgive me for a moment whilst I talk about mine. Of course, this video was brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Now, most of you are aware of what a VPN is, but for those of you who aren't, I'll give you the 411. So Surfshark is a VPN service that encrypts all the data that you send through the internet, thereby protecting it and keeping any wackaloons from getting at it. But Surfshark ain't merely a one-trick pony. I mean, we all love streaming, right? And we do hate it whenever streaming services are restricted based on what country we're in, right? Well, with Surfshark, guess what? You could bypass that, changing your location and allowing you access to your favorite shows, and can be a vital tool for those who live in countries that like to censor their people for whatever the reasons may be. It ain't quite teleportation, but it is about as close as we're gonna get right now. So let's get it up on the screen here. This is Surfshark's offer for the month. By using my link in the description and using the promo code JoshRavel, you can get Surfshark VPN for 83% off and 3 extra months for free. That amounts to around a couple of bucks a month for protection that's normally reserved for secret agents and Mattia Binotto's job. Plus, there is 3 free months on tap there, and a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. So thanks once again to Surfshark for supporting this video. Now let's get back to Mr. Drugovich. We'll sift through his partial campaigns first. In the Italian Formula 4 Championship, he drove in the 2 rounds that Van Amersfoort could be bothered showing up at. Immediately, he was on the pace, and took a win in the final race at Vallelunga. In Euro Formula, he took over from Harrison Scott, who, after winning the title with a round to spare, decided to peace out. Felipe took pole and a race win, proving either that he and Scott were the class of the field, or that maybe, but the main focus that year was in German Formula 4. He had a few teammates that year at Van Amersfoort, including the now Mercedes Junior, Frederick Besti. All you need to know is that Drugovich destroyed them all, and after winning 6 races heading into the final round, there was a chance for him to win the championship, with him sitting very close to leaders Marcus Armstrong and that guy, but the fairy tale ending was not to be, falling just short and into P3. So that was kind of disappointing in a way, to not get the title when he was oh so close to nabbing it. But when he went back to India for another run in MRF Challenge, that was when lad here started to win some stuff. I mean, it was virtually a walkover. After winning 10 out of a possible 16 races, Drugovich won the title by over 80 points and gave him his first title in racing cars. But his grandmaster plan was to head back to Europe for the regular season, to continue on in that Euro Formula drive where he had a part-time gig. The aim was to return for a full-time stint and try to win the title. So with a great team, you would think that he would have won the title once the checkered flag had dropped at the final round in Catalonia, right? Well, you would be wrong. He didn't win it there. He won it at Monza. He took the championship with 2 rounds to spare. I mean, after all, he won 14 out of a possible 16 races, and those he didn't win, he got second in anyway. He also won the Spanish F3 title for good measure, and now you'd have to think that this was proof that Drugo was all things to all racing fans, right? No. Now, I'm gonna act the part of the gatekeeping douchebag here for a moment. Neither title was particularly impressive. Both championships were well past their glory days, and neither were exactly the fairest of championships when it came to equal equipment. Not to mention too, that anyone who ever wins Euro Formula seems to be cursed. You really want to impress us and get us to rep you? Move up to a proper championship that is totally equal with car performance and parity. Move up to FIA Formula 3. Oh. Wait. Yes, after demolishing everything in his path in 2018, he headed for the refuge of FIA Formula 3. It's clear what his ambition was, but he was with Carlin. And for however great Carlin is as a team, it's just never worked out in FIA Formula 3. But at the very least, Drugovich did have 2 teammates to go up against. And in the sport, if you can even call it a sport, that's about the only reasonable comparison you can make. Who were his teammates? They were Tepe Nattori and Logan Sargent. Now, while Nattori is a good driver, he was nowhere this year. So the only real comparison that he did have that year was against Sargent. And if you were to look at the standings on paper, it seems quite clear that Drugo was just the master of all things that were at that team, scoring more points than both Sargent and Nattori combined. So I guess that settles it, right? I mean, sure, but looking at things on paper in the sport is one of those things that just doesn't work. Like a $3 razor or the New Zealand accent, because Sargent outqualified him most of the time and scored points on 4 occasions as opposed to the one time where Drugo scored a P6 in Hungary. The standings did flatter him a bit, and in the Macau Grand Prix, he was nowhere near his teammates that weekend either. With these results, you would imagine that the best course of action would be to stick it out in Formula 3 for another year, preferably with a better team, to develop his skills before moving on. Yeah, the championship ain't perfect, but at least it's not Formula 2 levels of bad. For the 2020 season, he went over to Formula 2. His first year in the game would be with MP Motorsport. In truth, a good team, but they did suffer greatly in the last year and lost around about 100 potential points toward the team's championship. Why? Well, you know why. But this was 2020, clean slate, new drivers. Obviously, they did sign Drugovich, but they also enlisted Nobuharu Matsushita into the team. Man's here was an established driver at this level and had already won 4 races in these types of cars, so it was likely that it was going to take some time for Drugovich to get up to his level. Ha! Nobody told him that. At the first round in Spielberg, Drugovich qualified on the front row and won the sprint race. He'd win 2 more races that year in Catalunya and Bahrain, and took his maiden pole position in Silverstone, all of which was better than what Matsushita could achieve. In fact, throughout the 10 rounds they were teammates, Matsushita only ever outqualified him once, and when Giuliano Alesi came in to replace him, it still wasn't close. Maybe our assumptions were slightly wrong. Maybe there is something to Drugovich, and especially to burst out of the gates in Formula 2 like that. Sure, he only got P9 in the standings that year, but Formula 2 is such a red herring of a championship. Car performance and reliability does play a factor, and for 2021, Drugovich was going to fall foul of all of that. For 2021, he transferred over to UNI Virtuosi. Why did he do that? Well, because the previous year, they had worked wonders with Zhou Guanyu and Callum Ilott, with Ilott battling Mick Schumacher for the title, with an engine that ran on rat poison and Bruno Michel's sweat. That year, they did resume their winning ways, just not with Drugovich. While Zhou won 4 races and finished 3rd in the standings that year, Drugo finished 8th with no wins to his credit, and only ever stepped onto the podium 4 times that season. It was marred by inconsistency as well as stupidity, but hey, everything happens for a reason, I guess. All part of the learning experience. Maybe he did have the rat poison engine, who knows? What was known was that he would head back to MP Motorsport for 2022. A downgrade in team? I don't think so. Not with the investment within that team. Although he was never the favourite heading into that season. People were looking at Lawson, people were looking at Hauger, they were looking at Vips, they were looking at Sargent, and Doohan, and Daravala. People were looking at Nassani, in the same way that you would look at a hyena on angel dust. But more so than all of them, they were keeping a watchful eye on Théo Pourchaire. With the hype surrounding this long-chinned Frenchman, he seemed a shoo-in for the title. And after leaving the first round with the championship lead after winning the feature race, it appeared as though that the prediction had come true, that this was Pourchaire's championship to lose. But then things happened, and it all started in Saudi Arabia when Drugovich took pole position, which he used to springboard himself into a feature race win and 3rd place in the sprint race, while others around him either fell victim to pit stop blunders or that thing. The thing that plagues all drivers that come into contact with it, and of which all drivers fear. I am of course talking about Mechachrome. But you know what? That ain't Drugovich's problem. He was running his own race, and he was doing a damn fine job of it. And after sweeping the round in Catalonia and winning the feature race in Monaco, he was leading the championship by a margin. He just kept tallying points with remarkable consistency. He wasn't winning races after Monaco, and he was barely getting on the podium a lot of the time, but he seemed to have a timeshare on P4, and those are valuable points. Although after a less than stellar round in Hungary, his main rival was now within striking distance. What was needed heading into the summer break was for Felipe and MP to sort out their issues and bring him back to the type of dominance that we had seen in Catalonia, with 2 pole positions in Spa and Zandvoort, as well as a feature race win at the Temple of Verstappen. He had one hand on the trophy. By Monza, the gap was too big, and a Superman S Championship comeback for Pourchaire just didn't come to fruition. Drugovich watched from the pit lane as he became the 2022 FIA Formula 2 champion. All throughout the year leading up to his crowning, there were calls for him to be on the Formula 1 grid for 2023, and while it wasn't as such, he did get a development and reserve driver role with Aston Martin. Why hasn't he gotten a proper F1 call-up? Well, opportunity, and despite having a decent amount of backing behind him, the money isn't quite as plentiful as, say, King Latifi's is. It's a very dumbed-down explanation of what's happening here, but knowing all that we know, do I still think he should not be first in line for a Formula 1 seat? Yeah, I still do. But he should be given a shot at Formula 1. Why? Because he's earned it. Yeah, he hasn't had the greatest junior career of all junior careers that have ever been. And right now, there are others that I would rather put in there, but he has always been a decent wheelman. This year, he strung together everything you could possibly ask of him. Some have argued that this year's Formula 2 grid was weak, and I'll retort by saying, bullshit. Don't try and spin something like that to support your argument. Have others been unlucky this year with reliability and other circumstances? You bet your ass they have been. But guess what? That's racing. But the big thing here is that you don't know how well a driver will do in Formula 1 until you chuck them into the deep end. Nick De Vries got so much including from yours truly before he made his debut in the Italian Grand Prix. Are we still chatting No, but a lot of us were not prepared to give him that chance in the first place. With Drugovich, we should, because this dude is not a slow driver. He's earned that chance, and I do kinda hope he does get it, even if the idea of a junior program at Aston Martin is hilarious. Like, seriously, you really think they're gonna get an opportunity? I don't know. And personally, if the rumors are true of Drugovich turning down a 3-year deal at a top IndyCar team in pursuit of this, he's an idiot. But hey, it's his dream, not mine. And one more thing before we wrap up. For all you Brazilians out there clamoring for another driver from your homeland to make it into Formula 1, remember, you have always got good talent coming through. Whether it be Drugovich or Rafael Camara, it will happen. Eventually. I think.